Hey there, and welcome to Hardcore Sustainable. I wanted to do a little video to talk about some of the differences that I've noticed between the St Pete Ecovillage here and Dancing Rabbit, because I think it gives you a good idea of sort of different challenges that we have at Dancing Rabbit and also challenges that they might have here, or positives and negatives of both places, and how I see them. I think there is potential for me to, like, in the wintertime, come down here and check out St. Pete Ecovillage and get the benefits of what it has to offer, and then other times of the year be living at Dancing Rabbit. For me, I think living in the country is important because I like the connection to nature. I love being able to see all the stars, having open land and wildlife and wild places to have access to, and like be able to walk around and ride my bike out in the country. And things are different here in the city. The sky at night is always pink or orange because of the light pollution. There's lights everywhere and you can never see actual darkness in a city. And there's constant noise. You can just tell by when I try to do these videos here, when there's not a seagull chirping in the background, there's usually some kind of air conditioning going, some truck starting up, some motorcycle, and something noisy, always. But as far as resources, another benefit of the city is they just have access to so many things. Like, I ride around and I can see all sorts of construction material in dumpsters. Problem is, then you can bring it back here, but you really can't build your own house because of all the zoning code. And so the materials are there, resources are there for building, but it's difficult to implement any kind of natural building or sort of more sustainable housing here. But having a lot of resources nearby is great for, like, this garden because they can just get mulch and compost dropped off from the city. They can get all these great soil amendments that just come locally from this area. And another thing that they have a lot of, an abundance of here at the garden that we are lacking at Dancing Rabbit, is volunteer labor. There are people that come through here almost every day and just give their time to this garden and to the Eco-Village here. And they don't get anything in return except knowing that they're contributing to this project. It's meaningful enough to them to give their time and know that they help to, like, install that biodigester or build that garden bed. Whereas at Dancing Rabbit, we're out in the middle of nowhere and we're isolated from a population of people that are really sympathetic to us and would be willing to give their time to our project. And so what ends up happening is we're doing all the labor, which makes it that much harder and that much more time consuming. This collective garden has been going since 2010, and they've been growing all this produce in it. That's just like a collective effort of the community. People just come to this place and they see how lush and green it is and how incredibly productive it is, and they're really inspired. But the space here is obviously limited, and at Dancing Rabbit we have as much space as we could possibly want. We have horrible soil and it has to be totally restored, but at least we have the space to be doing it, and we have the space for livestock. There's so much potential there, and space is really limited here. And the other reality is the economic reality, which is at Dancing Rabbit, having that isolation means we're isolated from markets for products that we could sell to people. We're isolated from 9-to-5 jobs. We can't commute because it's just not practical. We have a car co-op and we have 4 vehicles among 50 people or so. So you can't go to a 9-to-5 job because you're gonna take one of the vehicles out of the car co-op, and then everybody else will be limited in where they can go. Whereas here, They're close to markets for any kind of products that they would want to sell, so starting a business is totally viable here. Um, it's viable at Dancing Rabbit, but it's just so much more difficult because you're far away from your customers. You're going to have to ship your product really far away. Um, it's not as practical to have some kind of service because you're going to have to go far away to provide that service to people. Whereas here, um, not only can people start their own business and have a good customer base, they can have a 9-to-5 job. They can easily get a job. And so that's like the housing and the job part that are major factors and difficulties and challenges at Dancing Rabbit are pretty much covered here. So this is the reason why in 2 months they can grow from 0 to 60 people. That's including us from the caravan. Of course, that means then they have these difficulties with like not having the structures in place to deal with that many people. Here at St Pete Ecovillage, all the housing is already built for them. There's like 4 houses here, and they can just move in, which is why at Dancing Rabbit it took us 15 years or so to get up to 60 people, and now they've got 60 people living here at the Ecovillage in 2 months, which is pretty crazy, and I think they're dealing with the repercussions of it in some ways and adjusting to that. But at Dancing Rabbit it took us so long to get up to that population because we had to build our own houses from scratch. We started out with basically an empty farm with a couple of outbuildings, and since then we've built over 35 natural buildings and structures at Dancing Rabbit. One of the things about it taking us so long to get up that population is it gave us time to build the systems and put in place systems for organizing that many people, and we've sort of slowly evolved to be able to handle a population like that. And here at St. Pete, they're sort of having the growing pains of like a huge population growth spike almost immediately. And they're also trying to do so much stuff here, like they're planning a tiny house festival for April 1st, and I only started hearing about it and they only really started planning it a couple of weeks ago, and April 1st is like less than a month away. So they're pretty ambitious in taking on some of these big projects when they're still just trying to get the houses up to code and livable. They have so many people volunteering here, and they have that new energy and enthusiasm. And there's a lot of transition. There's a lot of people coming and going, people getting burnt out pretty quickly because they either just have never lived in community and can't deal with the realities of it, or it's just, it's a little too much for them, and so they're taking a break or they're moving on. At Dancing Rabbit, that kind of thing happens all the time, that people get burnt out or that it's just not right for them. They're not, it takes a kind of special person to live in a community like this or like Dancing Rabbit, and it's not for everyone. Another obvious benefit and difference between Dancing Rabbit and here is climate. Here they can grow food all year round. It's incredible. Like this, they're planting all these cool weather crops like the brassicas, like cabbages and kale, and they have a super long season for that stuff because in the wintertime it stays relatively cool and those crops flourish. And they're more limited actually during the summertime because it's so hot. Whereas at Dancing Rabbit, a huge part of the year we can't grow anything. And so our fruit trees are dormant and our gardens are more or less dormant. I have the hoop house where I'm growing greens through the winter usually. Not this winter, but normally I would. But that's a huge portion of the year where we can't grow our own food. The benefit of living in a temperate region where we have all these seasons is in the wintertime, because it is cold, you can store fruit and vegetables over the winter in a root cellar because you have a cool enough temperature that you can do that. Here, you can get fruit tree varieties that are producing year-round. I think you can actually get different avocado varieties and get fruit the entire year just using planting different avocado varieties. So think of that potential and just the amount of sunlight and the warmth that means that you can produce food all year round here. You know, permaculture was started in Australia and developed in Australia, and I think a lot of the systems were adapted to a subtropical region, and that's basically, or a tropical region, and that's basically what this is here in Florida. So the different methods of like chop and drop, they're growing moringa here, which you can just cut it back and it'll grow back, and you know, one season it'll grow to be like 30 feet tall. So you have just this massive biomass potential here. Permaculture is completely different in Missouri because we have these seasons and everything goes dormant, and obviously you can't grow the same kinds of trees and plants that you can here. What I'm trying to point out here is these differences. They're not necessarily they're good and bad for each situation. They're just different. Economically, this place is so much more rooted in a population center, a customer base, and what they want to do with the hostel is, you know, another thing that, like, they're going to have travelers coming through here all the time because it's a major city, and especially if there's a hostel, so they'll draw people here. And what I was saying about having people around, not only is that good for volunteers, but it's good for visitors. So they're getting, I mean, every day I see groups being toured through here by someone, like pretty big groups sometimes. And at Dancing Rabbit, we have those tours twice a month during the season. And we do have regular school groups coming through all the time, but just think of like the potential of a place like Dancing Rabbit with a population like this around it. I mean, people would be going through there constantly. And we would be reaching so many more people with the systems that we have. We just have to be reaching more people, and that's part of the reason why I'm doing this YouTube channel, is to get the word out about Dancing Rabbit and say that, like, you know, if you want to build a tiny house or have your own, you know, live sustainably with a group of people in a way that you can't do anywhere else, it's Dancing Rabbit. And we need more people, and once we get more people, the economy is gonna be there. We're gonna build our own economy just by the fact that we have so many people there. There's gonna be enough people to buy products from people who want to start small businesses, and then we'll create our economy completely sustainably. Here, people can have 9-to-5 jobs, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be sustainable jobs. That means they're going to be probably working for within some part of the unsustainable economy. So the moral of the story is both of these places are incredible places where people are trying to live more sustainably. So you should come visit Dancing Rabbit, and you should come visit St Pete Ecovillage and support them. This is the only way that we're going to survive, is to have faith and hope in places like this that are changing the world and are creating a model for a better way of living. So come visit us at Dancing Rabbit and here at St Pete Ecovillage, and support what we're doing in any way you can. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share and give a thumbs up to the video, and I'll see you next time.